Hello and welcome back to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. On the show this week, we are joined by former Scotland star turned celebrity Thom Evans, plus Scotland captain Rachel. Malcolm and I sit down with Director of Rugby Development Sheila Begbie to chat about the Club Hardship Fund.
Well, we're delighted to be joined by former Glasgow and Scotland player Thom Evans, and I should add, A-list celebrity. A-list now, Tommy?
I'd say somewhere in the D region, but we can go with it.
That's not true. You're flying up the lists. I don't know how you graduate from one list to the other, but it seems to me that you've graduated a lot of lists in the last few years. Are you good, buddy?
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's always good to be known for TV shows as opposed to a sport that you played to the highest level you could. I was actually down at Twickenham. Was the last match I watched, and was with a couple of mates, and I like the fact that there's this group of I think I'd call them like mums came up, and I was like, oh, this is going to be nice, always nice to be remembered for the rugby days. And the first woman was just like, oh, you were just so good on Strictly, and I was pretty gutted about that because seems to be falling away my old rugby history, which is always nice.
Well, the only thing worse than being remembered for something new is not being remembered at all, Tommy. So I don't feel all that sorry.
This is very true, Al. Yeah, very true.
And lockdown, are you coping okay?
Yeah, no, good, thanks. Yeah, it's obviously a weird time for many reasons, but it's nice to be spending time with the family and the loved ones, and just making most of this uncertain time.
Thom, you've been quite busy on TikTok. Is that something which has kept you and your partner Nicole Scherzinger busy during lockdown?
It certainly has. Obviously, my other half makes dancing look easy, and I'm an enthusiast when it comes to dancing, but she makes it look so easy. And I have to say, there's been like learning those TikToks is something else. It's such hard work, and it's definitely been tough on the old relationship at times.
Done a couple myself, Tommy. I'll send you them on. Kate and I have got some TikToks.
this I want to see, Big Al. Send them right over. How about Rachel? Do you get involved with the TikToks?
I'm not quite on the TikTok hype yet. I think I'm a bit past that. A few of the younger girls in the squad are on it, but it's not for me yet.
It's really, really taken off, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe it the first time I went on, just how huge it is, and it's actually nice to see families getting involved and using this time for dancing.
Oh, see from your latest Instagrams, you've let yourself go a wee bit in the training department.
I've actually had a clear out on my knee. It's like 2 weeks ago, so I'm on crutches for 6 weeks, which is a bit annoying. So I have to try and find some TikToks that don't involve moving your legs.
For body TikToks.
So an old injury from days gone.
Yeah, just too much dancing. Yeah, too much dancing in the Viper and back in the Glasgow days out.
Back in Viper. You mentioned Glasgow, Tommy. You obviously spent a good number of years both at Glasgow Warriors, but also living in the city. You've got. Oh, I'll ask you. Do you have fond memories of that time?
Oh yeah, I have to say, my time up in Glasgow was one of the best times of my life, and I say that to everyone I meet or people who haven't visited Scotland and Glasgow in particular. Until you've been there and seen it for what it is. The restaurants, the people. The fact that you can just travel 20 minutes to the lock, it really was the most amazing experience for me, and I try and get back there whenever I can. It's just with things the way they are now, it's hard to.
Talk us through the memories of of getting the opportunity. You were playing at Wasps, but you were also singing. Is that right? You were still part of 24/7, and then got the opportunity to come up and play pro rugby. It was the same year that I joined Glasgow. It was 2006.
Yeah, 2006. Yeah, it was. it was a massive decision in my life, that, because I'd obviously played schoolboy for England, and but my grandparents both being Scottish, it was always a massive sort of factor in my growing up, in my rugby culture, always watching Scotland play on a Sunday. But it was really when I played for England under 21s against Scotland under 21s, and Frank Haddon was in the stand along with Sean Lanine, and they approached me after the game and just said, "Look, we know your grandfather, we know you're Scottish qualified, and we think it'd be a big opportunity for you to come up to Glasgow and be playing first team rugby week in, week out, with a view to potentially and hopefully one day, putting on the Scotland jersey." And it was a huge decision, but there was never a doubt in my mind once I'd made that decision, and it turned out to be the best decision I could have made for me and my brother Max.
When you say the best decision for you and your brother, it was a year later that your brother came up. So I think Sean Lanine had seen that you were reasonably good at rugby, and you said, "Oh, I've got a brother," and Sean says, "Right, fine, we'll sign him." Is that pretty much how it happened?
Well, like Sean, I had a good relationship with Sean. He was the reason why I came up to Glasgow, and he was always very good to me. And when I mentioned my brother Max, who at the time was a golf professional and had been told by this physio, we won't name his name, that his back would never hold up at international rugby, and he saw me doing well, he saw me having fun, and he wanted it. He wanted to be a part of it, and I arranged with Sean for him to come up and be involved with the Glasgow Hawks, and he made that happen, which was great of him, because there's a lot of youngsters who would give anything to have a contract with any of those clubs up there. So he came up and had to prove his worth, but he did, and then next to no time he was involved with the Warriors, and had Sean not given him that chance, he might never have played for Scotland. So it's really, I've got Sean Lanine to thank a lot for that.
It's obviously pretty special when you play for your country, Tom, but it must be even more special for you that you got to do it with your brother as well. What was that like, knowing that you were experiencing that with your brother?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's something we'd always dreamed of at school, but it's one thing dreaming about it, and then when it actually comes about and we're standing at Stade de Paris, about to take on the French side by side, it was a moment I will honestly never forget. Had the whole family there, closest friends had made the flight over, and it was just a moment where all the hard work, all the sacrifices, it makes it all worth it. I was just only sad my granddad wasn't there to see it, but I know he was somewhere looking down.
Not only the rugby, Tommy, but you lived with Maxie through many years at Glasgow, and the two of you at times came as a package. One memorable story I have is, I mean, when you look at you and you look at your Instagrams and the way you both played professional and international sport, you're obviously very fit individuals. But can you talk us through the time that you had a big fallout in the morning, because either Max had discovered that you'd eaten the cookies the night before that he wanted for his breakfast, or that he'd eaten the cookies that you wanted for your breakfast? There's a wee bit of truth in that story, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and there's to go more into it. We'd come up with an idea with the nutritionist at the time that we were losing weight rapidly, and we always seemed to do this like mid-season. Just found it impossible. No matter how many protein shakes we were taking, the weight was just not staying on us. So we came up with this plan that we should have a packet of chocolate digestive biscuits each every night with a cup of tea to see if that would improve and keep some sort of fat on. So this was music to both our ears, because we got to have a packet of digestives for ourselves every evening. It didn't work, and we actually ended up losing weight. But that particular morning, I'd stolen some of his biscuits, and let's just say he took it personally, and far too personally, if I may say so myself.
Playing alongside each other test your relationship as well, or was it just the off-pitch stuff where you came to blows?
Yeah, I mean, we were very competitive growing up, and we couldn't play any sport against each other until we were sort of past 17 without having a fight. Which I have to say he would mostly win because he was much bigger than me at the time. But I honestly believe that pushed us to, that competitive spirit pushed us to sort of fulfill the dreams of playing for Scotland. And even when he came up, to the Hawks, just having him around and having that buzz and feeding off each other was instrumental for me. And, there's no doubt that I had my best games for Scotland when, the both of us were involved, and for Glasgow, because, he only played, one position inside me at outside centre, and it was just instinctive. I could read what he was going to do before he was going to do it, and vice versa. And it was everything for him to come up, and I couldn't have imagined it any other way.
Do you remember your first game for Glasgow Warriors, Tom? Do you remember it well?
I do, yeah. I do, yeah. It was actually at Hughenden. It was against the Dragons. Al will remember that game well because we should definitely have won it, and they came back in the end and won. And it was a really hard defeat to take, considering when we started so well. But it was. I loved playing at Hughenden, and the crowd. I never forget the crowd were really sort of up close and personal, and it was a great occasion. I was just gutted we lost, but that first season for Glasgow with me was brilliant on so many levels, because I only had 6 first team starts for Wasps, so to be playing week in, week out, in a league that was so competitive against fantastic players was just an experience like I'd never had, and it was a stepping stone for what was to come.
I remember the game you're talking about, well, Tom. It was my first competitive game as well, first game as skipper. And I think we were about 20 points up at half time. I think we tracked it, and then we lost the game. But you'd played, so I've got better memories of that series of games than I do about most other games. But we played against Newcastle in a warm-up game over at West of Scotland. But there was also a pre-season game up at
Rotherham,
at Whitecraigs, but we played a game at Whitecraigs as well.
Was that against Rotherham? I think it was.
I think so, and it was the first game. Now I wasn't playing in that game, but it was the first time we'd seen you play. So we'd obviously trained with you and seen that you had a reasonable amount of speed. But you scored a try from your own half that game. I remember I was standing. I think it might be Scott Barrow. I was standing next to. And you got the ball, and we kind of both jokingly said to each other, "He'll probably score from here." And then the next thing, you were dotting under the post. Do you remember that the same way I am, or have I made that up?
No, I do. I think I kicked it ahead around the halfway line, and I just was standing, just chased it down, and then I realised when I got to the ball that I was the only one there, and just picked it up and dotted it down. So that was
happens to me all the time.
I was thinking that with the digestives as well, Rachel. That for me, it's not worked for me either.
Falling off me.
Tell me, what's your first memory of meeting Big Al? Because obviously coming up and going into new clubs, and it's intimidating in itself, and you've got to make new friends pretty quickly. What was your first impression of Big Al, and who were the kind of guys that you kind of formed a relationship with early on at the club?
First impression of Big Al was I kind of knew he was a captain, or he had that vibe about him. I know he'd come from Edinburgh. I'll be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about the club systems up in Scotland, but I knew he'd come from Edinburgh, and he was quite an imposing figure. So I knew he was in that aspect of leadership. I'm not just trying to make his head big, but that's my honest opinion. And I knew the likes. I knew John Barclay because I'd known him sort of when we played Scotland under 21s. John Beattie. I knew Dan Parks because his sort of record. With a kicking with his game, he was a face that I recognised, and there were a couple of great leaders in that team, and I was really fortunate because I'd come from a team like Wasps who had some big individuals themselves, but for me, there was never really that family vibe. And the most amazing thing I found from being up in Glasgow was everyone was for each other. You know, you saw that in the social side of things. Everyone went out together. Everyone, you know, after a game, you know, everyone drank together when we won. And it was just such a great family sort of experience. And I think Al, I think everyone else, Bernice to Tony from Argentina, you know, that's the reason why everyone loved Glasgow, because it was a unique experience, in my opinion, and I found it very special.
You got a highlight that you could draw on from when you were at Glasgow?
It would definitely have to be, there were a couple, but it would definitely have to be when we beat Toulouse in the Heineken Cup. And we were sadly out of the cup already, but Toulouse had their full strength side going into the knockout stages. And I think they just wanted to, test out their starting lineup, and think they were going to like be 50 points up by the break and then take them off. And we stuck it to them. And it was just the most satisfying victory I think I've ever been involved in. And they didn't even wait around to sort of congratulate us. They all just like stormed off, which made the victory even sweeter. So I think Al remembers that day well. It was a day I honestly never forget. And I think we played some of the best rugby in a Glasgow shirt that I've ever been involved in. So it was definitely, the number one experience.
It was an incredible game. But the build up to it as well, as you say, we were already out, and it was a bit like that back then. It was, you know, trying to get the consistency into the game, but it was more about one-offs, wasn't it? And that was fantastic. It was a wee bit. It got a little bit tired at times as well. I'm sure Maxie was causing trouble that game.
Yeah, I think Maxie got man of the match, I think, that game. He was really getting stuck in, I think. But I never forget, you said before, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a pitch. It's 15 on 15, and it's who wants it more. And you were like, you made the point that, you know, that their mind was already on the quarterfinals. They didn't respect us, and I think it just, you know, really kind of got us up for it. And we just, from the moment, from the first whistle, we were just, they never had a look in, did they?
No, absolutely. And you kind of go back and you look at games that, you know, build towards where Glasgow are now and how well they're doing. And yeah, from our own journey, that was a key game, because it was a game where we all almost stepped back and realised, look, we can do this. Like, there's no reason why we can't do this. And the battle then, as I said, was to do it consistently. But it was a massive game, an enjoyable game off the park as well. The night out, I seem to remember, was quite good fun to do.
Is that there's more to that than Al's leading on to? So
there's a lot more to that than Al's leading on to.
Not for this forum.
I'm going to play the card that I forgot. So,
Tom, your performances at Glasgow merited you getting a call up to Scotland, and you did, as you mentioned earlier on, you did play for Scotland. We'd obviously love to have seen you playing more time for Scotland, but we're not going to maybe talk about the injury in that much detail. But does it feel like to you that, you know, that's 10 years ago now? Does it feel like 10 years for you?
Well, it does now. 5 years on from the injury, it felt like no time had passed. But now it does feel like it feels like a different lifetime ago that I was playing. Even when I go and watch games now, and I've been up to Murrayfield to see, you know, a couple of the Six Nations game. It just feels like forever. But yeah, it's I'd say for the first couple of years after it, like time just didn't like flew by, but now it feels like a decade ago for sure.
Yeah, and one person I want to mention, because I have this really vivid memory from the Rugby World Cup in 2015. I know that you came to the team hotel in Guildford, and I've never seen Dr. James Robson like that before, but his face just lit up when he saw you come through the door, and you both just ran to each other and had this huge embrace. What does that man mean to you? Because clearly he means something to you from that occasion.
Oh, he means everything. You know, he was instrumental in everything that happened that day. And, you know, I really, without getting too sort of sentimental about it, I owe him my life. And, you know, he's such a hero. Like, as Al will testify to, he puts players welfare before anyone. That's why he's been the Lions doctor. That's why he's been the doctor for Scotland for so long, because he's like you said, he's like a father figure to a lot of people, and he deserves all the accolades he gets. He deserves all the respect he gets. I mean, for me, he's one in a million, and had he not handled me with the care he did that day and been on there as fast as he was, I'm almost certain I wouldn't have had the outcome that I luckily had.
You still hear from him? Do you still stay in touch with Dr. James?
Yeah, I try. I mean, I actually, talking about it now, I should reach out to him more. But on his birthdays, I always hit him up, and if he kind of pops into my mind, or when I decided to come back and try and play sevens at the Dubai Sevens, I was in contact with him a lot. Asking him questions about his thoughts and how to strengthen my neck and stuff, which he was totally against, by the way. For the record, he was like, "What are you doing? Do not waste your time doing that." But no, I should be in contact more. But he knows, how grateful I am, and that's what's important to me.
The great thing about James, the medical treatment clearly it gives you, and Rachel knows as well, that as a rugby player, the trust and relationship you have with the medics is unbelievable, because you have to have that. But it's to Tom's point there, it's the ability to pick the phone up to him and ask him questions as well. Like he's as honest a man as you'll ever meet, and we've been lucky enough to have him on the podcast in the past. You won't find anybody that's gone through the Scottish rugby system who's got anything but good things to say about James, and probably the way that he looked after Tommy in that game down in Wales, and Chris Patterson. That was a tough game for Marty as well. And the aftercare that he then gave to the wider group was something incredibly special. So one thing, Tommy, looking past rugby, is at times I suppose replacing the camaraderie, which is almost impossible to do, the feeling in a dressing room, the honesty that you get in there, but also replacing the competitive edge. Like, we were used to competing, we competed every day. You talk about the competition with your brother as well. Does that spur, and I'm generally interested here, is that part of what spurs you on to do things like Strictly Come Dancing, the fact that it is competitive, or is it just to get more Instagram followers?
No, I think it's definitely has something to do with it. After my injury, like, I was just, firstly and foremost, I was grateful just to be having made a full recovery, and to be, active and be able to do things that I've always done. But a couple of years later, like, I really struggled for that reason, because, for me, I feel so incredibly lucky to have been involved in rugby, because the camaraderie, the banter, like, I'm sure Rachel can testify too. Like, it's so unique, and you can't really explain it to people. It's like you walk into the changing room and you're just like, it's that buzz, and once that's gone, and it's gone sort of like prematurely, it's a tough pill to swallow. And when Strictly came about, and it was like, right, the chance to sort of have that end goal, to have that competitiveness, to bring out the best performances you can. It was everything for me, because it was a void in my life that was massively missing, and to have it like sort of fulfilled again in something like Strictly was amazing. And yes, it was to get some more Instagram followers as well. I can't deny that.
I've got to say, Tommy, we've shared some great times together, some really tough times together as well. But one memory that will live with me forever is being at the Hydro in Glasgow after you'd finished your live show, and watching you sing A Flower of Scotland with no top and just a kilt on. That definitely took our relationship to a new level. But Tommy was very good to get myself and the family along to see him, and it was generally enjoyable. It was fantastic. We got to go backstage and meet everybody, and my kids, Kate and Rory, who Tommy knows well, were getting photos with all the celebs that were coming through, which was fantastic. And then it's like confession from me. as I'm taking all the pictures, Rachel Stevens then went past. And at that stage, I handed the camera to my daughter and said, "Could you get a picture of Dad and Rachel Stevens, please?" 100% true story. I don't think Rachel Stevens will remember, but if you mention
you mentioned singing there. Tom, singing seems to be quite a big part of your life as well. I know you've been in a number of boy bands as well, and you performed in the X Factor. Is singing something you've always enjoyed doing from a young age?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say my voice is anything like Kelly Brown's, who's got a fantastic voice, but you're right, I do love to sing, I love to dance. It's always been something that was ingrained in me when I was younger. I was a massive fan of Elvis Presley. I knew every single track, like lyric by lyric, and I don't really know where that came from. It was always in me. So yeah, when the chance for X Factor came about with a guy, Ben Foden, who I've known for a long time, with the same age, we jumped at it, and it was just it's probably one of the most terrifying things I've ever done, if I'm honest, because you're singing and you're dancing, and it's live television. But just the most exhilarating thing, when it all comes together, and you're on there, and I'm never going to be anywhere near it like a rock star, but that's I think the closest feeling I'll get to it.
Are you any plans to do something similar like that in the future, or take the singing a bit further?
Well, to be honest, I never saw it as like a sort of potential career move. I saw it as being like a lot of fun. But Nicole has said that potentially for one of her warm-up backs, we might get the nod. TriStar might once again form, and who knows? We'll see.
You mentioned TriStar. I know. I mean, the 24/7 boys aren't going to be happy about that, are they? Andy and Niall,
no, that 24/7, and like I said, was an amazing time. We didn't know whether we were going to perform to One Man and His Dog, and then suddenly we were on the Westlife tour, and it was awesome, and that's definitely like something I'll never forget. But I think, I was quite young and naive, and everything was all quite serious, whereas doing the X Factor, it was like just a bit of fun. And I think, if you're going into something just to have fun and fun alone, then you're not too worried about everything else. Just takes care of itself, and it was just, I had the best time, and it was I'm just so grateful that I got the opportunity, to be honest.
Tommy, we're talking a wee bit there about some of the things you've done post rugby. Tell me, how does it compare? You're standing in the anthem with your brother in front of 67,500 people at BT Murrayfield, or you're standing in front of Simon Cowell having to do your first audition. Where did the nerves stack up there?
I think the nerves before we went and performed to Simon and the X Factor was a different level. Only because when you run out, at these international games or club games, you're nervous, but you're sure of your skill set. Whereas doing the X Factor, I wasn't, and the other lads definitely weren't either. So when we're sat in Simon Cowell's bedroom, because that's where you had to sort of wait before going out on the stage at his house, and we're there, and he's got his sort of black toilet paper, and we're just sort of like looking around the room. It was one of the most daunting experiences I've certainly ever had. And we suddenly realised that we're singing in front of 150 of the most influential people in the music business, and we're singing No Diggity, and we're 3 rugby players. And I'll never forget, Ben Foden was like stressing me out, because he was like, I can't remember the words. What are the words? I'm like, Ben, we've done this song for the last 4 weeks. You do know the words. And he was like, no, you're gonna have to count me in. And I'll never forget, we're just about to go on, and it was actually Ben who just turned around and was like, you know what, guys, we could be terrible, but let's just have fun doing it. And we went on the stage, and it was just, the most incredible experience. But I don't remember any of it. It was a blur, and I just remember hugging Dermot O'Leary and just thinking, thank Heavens, that's all over.
Rach, I don't know about you, but the only thing I can compare it to is, your first game, your first either club or international game, and then having to sing on the bus.
Oh, that was honestly my biggest fear. As soon as I came into the Scotland setup and got told I had to do that, I'm the opposite of you, Tom. Like, the thought of singing in front of anyone, let alone lots of people, is my idea of hell. So, yeah, from my point of view, I was more scared about that than getting on the pitch for my first cap, 100%.
I was exactly the same. I mean, it's similar to singing in front of Simon Kellock, I can only expect.
Wait. Rachel, what was your first song, though?
Mine was Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
How does that go?
She will not be getting a demo of right now because nobody ever needs to hear that again. A great song, nonetheless.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah,
I went flying without wings only because I knew. I gave the lads what they wanted and just got heckled from the start.
Our problem back then wasn't trying to get guys up to do songs, other than the likes of myself who would sit. But we had Ewan Murray, we had Thom Evans, we had Kelly Brown. It was trying to get the microphone off them. Like
And Graham Morrison as well.
Graham Morrison, Lady in Red.
Jeez,
we had a couple this year who were buzzing about it. We've got a girl who's come over, she's from Canada, a girl called Christine Louise, and she performed. She was going up and down the aisle, going absolutely mental. She was buzzing about it. And we had a couple others. But
they've got their own band, Tommy. The women's team, the national team, have got their own band.
Really?
We do, yeah.
That's incredible.
It's called Rona and the Whales. I give them a little name drop.
Tommy, you'd be
I like that.
Like, next time you're over, we'll get you in. You can do a little bit with Rona and the Whales.
I'm in, right. Yeah.
They'd love that, 100%. Yeah. It's predominantly the backs, the sevens girls, but they have let me come in and shake a tambourine now and again.
That's quality. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's good fun, actually. It's good fun.
If you were on a team bus right now and you were told to sing, what song would you choose?
It would have to be This Is the Greatest Show, Greatest Showman.
How does that one go?
We did it in the semi-finals, X Factor. Check it out.
You're such a celeb. Very good. Tell me, Tommy, how are you and Louis Walsh?
Yeah, great. You know what? Like, you know me, Al. I've never been one to talk back, and I've never been that quick for starters. Like, my banter's not my strongest point.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. Then on that, was it pre-planned or did it just,
Honestly, no. I think everyone who knows me was just as surprised as even I was saying it, and it was only when I'd said it that I thought, "What have you just said?" And
sorry to jump in, but can you? I've missed this. What happened?
I think, what had happened was we were, we'd been told, because Simon Cowell was our mentor, and we're due to sing this Ed Sheeran song one week, and he'd come in on the Friday, so the day before our performance, and he'd been like, that's just not working for me, so we're going to have to change the song, which he does quite a lot. Not ideal, as you can imagine. And he was like, well, you're not going to be able to learn another song, so you're just going to have to do No Diggity again. So that's what we did. We sang the same song we'd done in the first audition, and it obviously caused like a lot of stress and whatnot. And when we'd finished the performance, like, Louis' comments were just slightly negative, and he was kind of like, Levi's the voice, and Ben and Tom are just the backing dancers, which was technically true. But, when you've worked tirelessly in that time frame and to do something, and you just get like negative comments, I was just a bit annoyed, if I'm honest. So he said that comment. He was like, yeah, Levi's the voice, and, you and Ben are just simply backing dancers. And it just triggered something in my mind. So my reply was, well, Louis, with all due respect, but you've been Simon Cowell's backing dancer for most of your life.
It's worth giggling, Jamie.
And I was even in shock when I said it, and I just realised and I was like, what have you said? But I think it's actually what saved us, to be honest, because we might have gone that week, but it seemed to
Come up some support.
Go down fairly
It's
well.
brilliant. Definitely worth looking at. As I say, went viral around the internet, but went viral on our WhatsApp groups as well. And it was out of character. It's not like Tommy to be too prickly, but it was spot on. It was absolutely.
But no. In answer to your question, Louis saw me after, and he was just like, "I loved it." He was like, "The show needs more of that." So we were all good.
Well, Tommy, generally, it's been an absolute pleasure to get you on and to hear about your Glasgow and Scotland journey, as well as the many things that you are doing now. We still all follow your life on Instagram, and when you occasionally reply to the WhatsApps, that's fantastic as well.
No, thanks so much, guys, for having me. It's a real pleasure, and it's lovely to be on.
Thanks very much, Tom. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
How good to get Tommy on, guys. He is, I could honestly, some of the stories, not just on the park but off the park, an incredible character.
Definitely done a fair bit with his life. Lots of interesting stories there.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, isn't he? That I think we can see that, and you touched on it a little bit. The competitiveness that he has, the drive that he has. You know, this is somebody who had a really serious neck injury, but still has gone on to achieve so much more in a different realm as well, not in sport. You know, he's taken a huge leap and moved into, you know, as you said, this A-list celebrity world. So it's a good on him.
He kind of came through it beforehand. Like the 24/7 one was the one that we all knew because that's where he'd come from, and he was, for so many of us, like it was just an abnormal world, and then it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and you know, he's done brilliantly, and like it sounds as if the acting is something that he's very much pursuing. But the drive that he needed post that injury in 2010 was incredible. That was, I mean, it was the hardest moment that many other players had been through. Never mind the guy that actually happened to, because it was the first time where any of us had experienced such a severe injury, an injury that, you know, could have been an awful lot worse, but was still incredibly difficult. Tommy was in hospital for a good while, and myself, Max, Chris Custer went to see him on the Sunday after the game, and it was as an emotional 2 hours as I've ever had. Incredible. And then to think that Chris Patterson was up the stairs in the same hospital with his kidney that he'd taken a severe injury to as well. And the ending of that game, it was just a funny time for all of us. But Tommy, and the way he dealt with it, I suppose helped everybody else. Now that sounds like a funny thing to say because he was a guy that was going through it, but to see him react and get through it the way he did with the help of people like James Robson was inspiring. It truly was. Now we didn't touch on the injury much there because he's gone past that injury. He's gone past that injury in a fantastic way, but you can't say enough about the way he dealt with that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I think, like, with your teammates, it's like they're your family, isn't it? So, like, when something like that happens to them, you feel it with them. And I guess that kind of injury, there's not a huge amount worse that you can do in our game, and to go through that with them does create that kind of bond and makes you want to go out there and do something for them, doesn't it?
Yeah, Rachel, we're at the top end of the park, and there was a scrum, and we could see that Sam was down and he was injured. But you know what it's like. There's players get injured during games, and you need to kind of focus on what's going on. And he was so far away, there wasn't even an opportunity to go and give it the okay, which is probably just as well at the time. And so it wasn't until after the game that we got back in the dressing room and kind of found out how severe Tommy's injury was, but also Moss's as well. And the game itself, we were I think 12 points up with maybe even more, with only kind of 5 minutes to go. So the game itself it ended in an unbelievable manner. So that was in the kind of forefront of your mind. Then you go back into the dressing room and you're hit with that news. That night was incredibly difficult for Maxie, as you can imagine, who played in the game. And a memory will always be with me is the first time we were back in a Glasgow shirt. And Tommy at this stage was on a bit of a road to recovery, but obviously still difficult situation. Maxie scored a try under the posts, and he ran back and he put his arms in a T shape, a T for Tommy, and oh my goodness, like I was playing in a game, and it took a moment or two for everybody to kind of compose himself to get back in after that, because, you know, as I say, very, Tommy, it was him that was injured. Everybody else around him never seen anything like it. But for your brother to be injured in that game, you can only imagine what Mark he was going through. So, look, it's just great to hear how well he's doing. And Joe, we do catch up reasonably regularly. I've got a group of the kind of old players that chat, and we're all putting in about taking the kids down to the park or homeschooling issues. Tommy's talking about his A-list life and everything that's challenging him in that, which, it's different challenges, but it's just brilliant to see him do so well.
Well, Rach and Al, it's also a little bit weird, but great now that we can talk about rugby that took place at the weekend. So rugby did return in New Zealand with crowds. I don't know if you guys saw any of the games, but just great in general to see rugby back on the TV, wasn't it?
Yeah, we set our alarms for the game so we could catch them. It was a bit of something different, I guess, to get on with in lockdown. But no, it was great to see it back, and I think particularly the second game was super exciting to watch. And it was great.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on phase 2 for us, I suppose, in Scotland. And the return of sport is definitely high up the agenda. Return of rugby, getting the players back in training. There'll be a prolonged pre-season period, but how good it is, as you say, Jamie, to see that light at the end of the tunnel. Now, also, as Jason Leach pointed out, it's on the backdrop of some tough times for a lot of people, but I completely agree with what Jason said as far as the role that rugby and sport in a wider context can play. So a lot of people now waking up on a Saturday morning looking forward to picking up some games.
And one final question I'm going to throw to you both is, I don't know if you saw the clip, but Warren Gatland's son, Bryn Gatland, scored a drop goal to win the game and beat his father's team. Have you guys ever been in a situation where you've had to maybe put your friend or family member in a situation like that?
My dad, Jamie, has played one game of rugby in his life. He wasn't a rugby player, and I was playing for Alan Glenn's. I don't know what we were 16 years old or so, against an over 40s team, and he'd helped out, and he still does. Alan Glenn's does an enormous amount of work, so he thought, I'll play in this game. So we played against each other once. I don't remember a huge amount about the game, but I do remember my dad having to drive himself to the hospital on the Monday morning. And then phoned my mum because he had to have he'd broken his thumb in 2 places. He'd gone for the rest of the weekend and completely ignored the fact that his thumb was broken in 2 places, which says a little bit about him. But he then drove himself up to the hospital and had to get picked up because his arm was in a sticky. Now, I should point out, it wasn't me that did it. Well, I don't think it was me that did it.
Might have been.
I played against my father.
I don't have a story to give you on that one, I'm afraid.
Rachel, you must. Knowing your dad, your brothers as well as I do, that is a competitive family. Tell me, even if it's not sport, I can imagine that the Monopoly board has been tipped numerous times in your house.
Not really, when it comes away from sport, we don't do a huge amount else, I'm trying to rack my brains now, but I can't think of a decent example for you.
Any chat around the dinner table at Christmas time about who's succeeding in sport, who's doing that? I mean, you're the only international rugby player amongst a high pedigree of rugby players within your family. But now the Scotland cap, you don't take your dad's seat now, do you?
No, that would never happen.
Jamie, you a twin brother. I mean, you must have grown up competitive.
Yeah, no, did he was always the good golfer and I was always the good rugby player. But there'd been numerous times I had just a different skill, isn't it? I'm more physical, abrasive, aggressive. He's more feeble. But no, many times in the golf course there would be there would be a lot of things happening in the background, like walking over the standing on the ball, digging it into the grass, and a lot of sabotage going on. So yeah, a lot of fisticuffs in the third hole usually by that point. But yeah, nothing.
Third hole, you didn't get far in, did you?
Yeah. And then you'd walk in because you'd be raging because you were losing. But yeah, no, just competitiveness, but nothing. Yeah, he was better at golf. I was better at rugby. Well, joining us once again on the podcast is Director of Rugby Development, Sheila Begbie. Sheila, hello, how are you doing?
Good morning, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for jumping on. The reason for you coming on today, obviously, is to talk around the the Club Hardship Fund. Back in March, this is something that was set up by Scottish Rugby. What's the latest on this initiative, Sheila?
Well, as you say, Jamie, the club was set up in March to cover the period from March to July, which was a period where we expected that there would be no rugby played. And it was also a period where because there was no rugby played, there was actually no opportunity for our clubs to generate any income. So the great news today is that we had 82 clubs who applied for CHF investment, and 82 clubs will receive investment. So everybody who applied has been successful and will benefit from the investment, with almost £400,000 being allocated to clubs from a pot that was initially £500,000. And just to say, the remainder of the investment in the CHF fund will remain in the fund and will be ring-fenced for other projects around the club game. Really good news also is that the applications that we saw were represented the whole of the 5 Scottish Rugby regions. So really delighted that there's a great spread of the investment going throughout the country to different clubs.
That's brilliant to see that you've been able to kind of fulfil all the different clubs who've applied for the funding. From your point of view, what do you see the money being used for within the clubs?
Probably, Rachel, a little caveat would be that all the clubs that applied, they didn't all get what it was that they applied for, but everybody's getting something. And we've had conversations with clubs who didn't actually get what they had initially applied for. So we've kind of managed the expectation from clubs. So in terms of what they applied for, we had 4 categories which covered people, premises, utilities and grounds. And by far the 2 biggest areas of investment required from clubs was around people. So looking at retaining their staff, and I think that clubs have been really creative in terms of using the Club Hardship Fund in tandem with the government's job retention scheme to make sure that they can actually retain some of their staff within the club, which I think is excellent. And the second biggest area of request in terms of investment was around utilities. So clubs looking for support with gas, electricity, water, waste, and just really calculating what would they need to maintain their clubhouse while it was closed, while also working with their suppliers over reducing their consumption over that period. So I think 2 really key areas for us, around people and around obviously utilities and clubhouses.
You mentioned that the people, Sheila, the great people involved in the clubs will be, usually at this time of the year, they'll be planning for pre-season and to get the clubs ready for the following season. What's kind of your messaging to the clubs at the moment with regards to that and the unknowns? What are you guys saying to the clubs?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the game at the moment, a lot of uncertainty in the country at the moment in terms of what's happening, and there is some frustration from clubs and players who are absolutely passionate and who want to get started, and we do appreciate that. But the situation around the pandemic is really fluid and there is no certainty. And I guess that every day we see the First Minister standing up at the podium at a press conference, there's no cast iron guarantees about anything that's happening at the moment. So with that in mind, what we will be doing is providing guidance for clubs on what the Scottish Government route map means for our game and for clubs as well. We'll also be providing advice which will be in line with the route map. So at the moment we're in phase 1 and we release some guidance for clubs, and what that really means for clubs is that there's no organised group rugby activity. So at the moment there is no group rugby training, there's no coaching and no games, and that players, while they're still are allowed to be active locally outdoors with other people from their own, it's only with one other household that they're allowed to be together. And that needs to be maintaining social distancing, so still 2 metres apart from other people, with a maximum group of 8, and no shared equipment. So no sharing of rugby balls, no sharing of gym equipment either. And then I guess also really major for our clubs is around the fact that the facilities are still closed. So that includes their clubhouses, their toilets, their changing rooms, gyms, pitches, etc. And just really pursuing that Scottish Government message around, good hand hygiene. So making sure that if you are in and around, with friends playing rugby, that you're still, at times you're still washing your hands, sanitising your hands, adhering to the NHS tests and protect protocols. So again, if they or anybody in their household are feeling any symptoms of COVID-19, then adhering to NHS Test and Protect. And for that, our clubs can go to nhsinform.scot to get more advice and guidance on what they should do.
I presume as well, at the moment with everything that's going on, we don't really know when we'll progress for the clubs. We don't really know when that will change. Is that correct?
Yeah, as I say, there's no cast iron guarantees in terms of what's happening. Although what I would say that we will provide guidance for clubs. The First Minister will speak on Thursday about what phase 2 will look like for the Scottish Government in terms of the route map. So we'll provide guidance for clubs on what phase 2 means for them in terms of their clubs and in terms of the game. So we'll do that post the First Minister's conference on Thursday. At the moment, we're actually working up a Scottish Rugby route map or road map, which will link to the Scottish Government route map and will show the clubs over the 4 phases of the Scottish Government route map. What does that mean for clubs? So we will be coming out within the next week or so with more guidance for clubs around, what does the future look for them and what can their expectations be? And all of the guidance that we will be providing with clubs will be caveated with the fact that we need to follow government protocol, we need to follow government guidance. So if everything is going well in terms of protecting the NHS, the R number decreasing, etc., all of the triggers that Scottish Government keep talking about, then we can make inroads into looking at when the season will start. And again, we will be communicating with clubs in the next week in terms of when we think that could potentially be.
And Sheila, I guess, final question for me, that really is the biggest challenge we are facing in Scottish Rugby, is that it's kind of out with our control as to when these changes will take place. So I'm guessing you guys are planning for a number of different timelines and timescales?
Yeah, we are. We're looking at different scenarios and modelling different scenarios in terms of what the game could look like, because when you listen to the First Minister, one of our key messages for us is that social distancing will be here for probably into next year. So it's, what does that actually mean for us as a game? What does it mean for our clubs? What does it mean if, in terms of travel? Because if we're looking at, bus hire, coach hire, maybe 50% reduction in the capacity on buses to take teams, or it might even be more than that, depending on if we still stay with 2 meters. So I think there will be some challenges, as you said, Jamie, that will be absolutely out with our control, but we will try as much as we possibly can to give some certainty to the clubs in what is a really uncertain period at the moment.
Sheila Begbie, Director of Rugby Development. Brilliant to have you on the podcast, and even more so to hear that every club that applied will be getting some financial aid. Thank you very much for your time, and stay safe.
Thank you.
That's all from us here on the official Scottish Rugby podcast, but as always, we'll be back next week with more exclusive content.